He's right there.
This episode of the Bucktails Podcast is presented by Pistol Creek, for those who enjoy the journey as much as the destination. Thank you for listening.
Pick his head up. Yeah. Look at that. Woo. Good deer, babe.
Welcome back to another episode of the Bucktails Podcast. This is your host, Eli Self. I've got with me today John Browning. Whenever I started the podcast, he's one of the first people that came to mind, really, that I wanted to interview. I know John through our hunting club, Pistol Creek. I've been down there for 20 plus years. I'm 28 now. So I've known John for a long, long time, kind of growing up with his daughters.
Well, and our families are intertwined outside of the hunting club as well.
Yeah,
with your brother and my sister. That. So
Quentin used to work at, what was it, the church they went to?
It was North Lake.
North Lake.
They were my niece and he was my niece and nephew's youth pastor.
Yeah. So small world in that respect. And then he used to build houses or worked with.
I was a builder for a good while, but never really ran a. I remember before you were born, I believe. Philip and Bobby being down there hunting with us.
Yeah, they were on there long time.
Then I left for a few years, and but when I came back, you were a teenager, I would say.
Yeah,
somewhere in there, and maybe somewhere about in there. And that's when you and I really got to know each other.
Right.
So.
Okay. Yeah. So I've known John for a long time. Always looked up to him, respected him. Good guy. If I had to describe John Browning, good hunter. Good storyteller, good dude, Christian man, just an all-around, like someone you would look up to and respect as a friend. So that is John Browning. That's who I've got with me today, and he is the owner of Pistol Creek Turkey Calls.
Yep, I am.
And they are one of our sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably heard that in the intro. But so when talking to John, he has, novels that he could tell about hunting, and that was kind of an issue that we came up with. He's like, well, what do you want me to tell? We've talked about telling stories about his girls and things that they've killed, because he told me that's what he's most proud of. What he's done. Who cares? He cares obviously, but his girls make him more proud than anything he's ever done in the woods. And,
that's fair. That's what I think right now. For a long time, people would, everybody asks, well, do you bow hunt or do you hunt with a gun or what? And people ask me, and I go, I hunt with little girls.
Yeah.
And somewhere about probably 2011, 2012, I pretty much laid everything down, I just sat with my kids in the stand, and for a while, and maybe I exploited it a little bit, but for a while, people were like, "Man, what a martyr you are to sacrifice like this for your children." But honestly, it was just more fun. It was just more exciting. It was like when we first started hunting and that doe walked by and you were a nervous wreck. Well, not that I still don't get excited, but it's not like it was when I was 12.
Right.
I'll put a 12-year-old in the stand with you, and it's just like that again.
Right. So. Yeah, I've kind of experienced that with my wife, Casey. She's actually in our studio today.
Casey's in the house.
Broadcasting from more custom cabinets. So here in Dahlonega, Murrayville, Lumpkin County.
Yeah.
We're in Georgia, I know that much. But when Casey started hunting, we were dating. And when she killed her first deer, it was at the hunting club. I think you were down there that weekend. And there was a 6-pointer, good first buck. And she killed it, and it dropped. And I started hollering, just, wow, let's go. Like, I was so pumped.
Yeah, but I was also down there last year when she killed the one that opens the segment on your podcast.
Yep.
And that when you finally see a picture of that one, guys, you're going to see why she was hollering and you were saying, pick his head up, pick up his head. Yeah, that was a good deer.
Yeah, we're going to have her on. I might record that later today, actually, a story on that one. Or there's a couple of stories that we could tell with Casey. But yeah, I need to post pictures on the page for sure of that. Where does the intro sound come from? And that's when she found the deer. But that was a fun one. But anyways, back to we were talking about, what do we want to talk about? Like, he was asking me, well, what do you want me to talk about? What's the, what are you trying to get across? I'm like, well, really, I don't know. Like, this is kind of evolving as it goes. A lot of my episodes so far, or I like the ones that have a picture attached to a story or a picture attached to an episode, because that's, the birthplace of this podcast is you see a picture on Facebook and you're like, whoa, I bet that, I wonder what happened. Was it as easy as you walked out, you shot him, he dropped, done deal? Or, was it a 10-mile hike through the snow, uphill both ways, and then you had to shoot him between your legs and up, then you had to pull off your side piece and fit, was it a crazy story or was it just a vanilla every day? So literally, we're sitting here, and I'm not sure what story he's going to tell. He's got a few pictures that he was scrolling through on his phone, and he's got some memories that popped up. So it's going to be we'll kind of see where it goes.
Well, and I think we just sort of hit on something with me talking about my daughter, then you talking about Casey, is, why do we even hunt at all? We don't have to, we don't have to feed our family by doing this.
Right.
There's something just primal in you that feels good when you do that. But while you were sitting there talking about Casey, I was like, well, that's why we hunt. And that's what I've always said, is to recreate a memory.
Yeah.
Now, early on, I didn't hunt much early on. I did hunt. My father wasn't like what we are. He wasn't down there every weekend or anything. But as I started getting freedom to go down there, the first thing that really appealed to me about hunting at a very young age, I was 8, 9 years old, was the camaraderie around the before and after the hunt. And I think that's something we've still kept pretty intact at Pistol Creek, where when we're all down there, is we have a whole lot of fun. We cook good food, we sit by the fire, we tell stories, we do exactly what we're doing right now. But then there is a moment like when Casey kills a deer, or when anybody, it doesn't have to be a female, but any of us kill a deer, we get excited. And I believe we get so excited because in that moment, I can remember all the times I've been able to do this before, And it's also, there's hunters out there, and I know some of them, everybody listening knows one, that they have to be the one to kill the animal.
Right.
I don't believe that hunter is going to last very long. Because when they realize that they're rarely the one that gets the buck, and that the majority of the time it's always somebody else, if you can't learn to embrace that and enjoy that, then you're probably not going to enjoy hunting very long. Yeah. So, I will say, the little intro you did with Casey probably emphasized to me why it was I really, I started hunting because my father took me, but it became a passion because I wanted to recreate that memory. The smells that go along with it. There's still nothing better to me than a Saturday in the fall, cool outside, the leaves are starting to change, and you're sitting there in your stand. Maybe you're seeing deer, maybe you're not, but you're like, oh man, we're having steak for dinner, or we're having whatever. We're going to have a fire. The weather's going to be great. This is going to be wonderful. And you let your mind wander off, and sometimes some deer steps out, and that makes it even better. But I just like recreate memories. That's why I like what you're doing here, because telling stories, we've been informed to death in this industry. Everybody has a how-to. We know exactly how to do anything we need to do because of all the informative stuff. Man, it sure is nice to just sit around and tell a story.
Yeah, and I think, if you were somebody who didn't have anybody to tell your story to, or to share your picture with after you killed something, or you couldn't pick up the phone and be like, man, you would not believe what just happened, I don't think many people would hunt nowadays. Because like you said, many people don't have to hunt for the meat. Some people do, and some people, if they don't need it, they may donate it so the meat doesn't go to waste. But a lot of it is the storytelling afterwards. Like you said, the camaraderie, the campfire, or in the fall, Georgia's playing, so we'll pull a truck up and listen to it on the radio, something like that.
Sitting by the fire, and and I have evolved into where I'm a turkey first kind of guy. But the first ever was deer hunting for me. Oh, yeah. That's what started it all. It wasn't until I got a driver's license that I could go turkey hunting, because in the spring, Dad, we were going trout fishing. I mean, that's just what you did. But on that line, the memory that I think started it all for my middle daughter, Emma, was one of the deer we were looking at here. That was a nice deer. It was not by any means I don't remember. I don't know if I even got it scored, but guessing it'd be 125-inch deer. Right. One of his brow tines was broke off. That 125 inches is assuming that brow tine was full length.
Right.
It was it was a good middle Georgia buck that, had I not had a 7-year-old sitting in the stand with me, probably would have walked on by me.
Yeah.
But that particular morning, the area I'm talking about, we call it the Big Rocks. It's down going towards the swamp to Pistol Creek. And that was the first year that Mackenzie, my oldest daughter, was hunting. and she had had a sort of a hard time with the deer. Part of that, and we'll get into that later, was because she had a father who had never taught a kid how to hunt yet.
Right.
You know, and I was just doing what my daddy did to me, and had I known then what I know now, we would have gone a different route with teaching kids to hunt. But that particular weekend, Mackenzie decided she wanted to stay and go to the 6th grade dance. But at this point, Emma was loving going to the deer club, because this was her first little bit of, okay, I get to do something that Big Sissy's doing. So she chose to go with me that morning. And if there was ever a God thing in deer hunting, this was definitely one. And I think and Emma has a reputation of being somewhat of a absolute deer slayer
If
now.
she's in the woods, something's going to die.
Yeah,
and something large is going to die.
Yeah, I've never seen anybody with better luck than Emma. But this is what really, I think, sealed it for her was we went in that morning. Emma, I always joke that she was our narcoleptic child, because if she sat still for 10 seconds, she was asleep. But Emma had a little single shot .223 that I had no intentions of letting her shoot at a deer with. I haven't told her yet, so sorry, Emma, when you hear that. You were never going to get to shoot that morning. But we took it, and I've got a rifle. I took mine, and we get down. I get her all packed up, and it was cool that morning. It wasn't real cold, but it was cool. And we go in and we climb up in the ladder stand there at the Big Rocks. It's still sitting there today, though I wouldn't get up in it now. And we climb up in there, put her on my left-hand side. And I said, Emma, why don't you get your little gun up and practice dry firing real quick, just in case. And had a doe walked out there and stood at 20 yards, I might have let her squeeze one off if it was on up in the morning, nice light and everything. And she did. She dry fired it a couple of times. And I loaded my gun, and set it down, and literally had gone to put my arm around her, and her head was already dozing off, because I think she may have been 6. I think she was 6 at the time.
Okay.
She was automatically going to sleep, and as she was going to sleep, I said, okay, that'll work good. That'll keep her where she, otherwise 10 minutes she's going to be ready to get out of the stand. I have a feeling. And but I remember thinking, I just hope that we see something quick so that she doesn't get bored with this. I want this to be exciting for her to, she'll have plenty of time to realize that sometimes it is boring in a deer stand. Mm-hmm. But I'd like for her to wait as long as we could. And in fact, I was not going to hunt that morning in hopes of taking her to a field that afternoon and letting her see a lot of deer. But she insisted we get up and go hunting. So we went. I had not gotten my arm around her yet so I was going to use my fist to give her something to rest her head on. When coming out of that creek bottom, not to the right down towards the swamp, but in front of you there's the ditch, and we're looking towards the property line, I started hearing something walking through the woods. And we hadn't been in the stand 2 minutes. And it was dusky dark. It was that black and white. Everything looks black and white. The leaves hadn't dropped yet. This was late October, early November. And I realized that's a deer walking up. And how we got in the stand without spooking it out, I don't know. So I started hitting Emma with my left arm, and at the same time, I'm getting the gun up with my right hand. And she's looking at me like, why are you hitting me? And I'm pointing, and about that time, I see that it's a single deer coming up, and I'm thinking, I'm going to shoot this doe, and just so Emma will be excited about that. And I look, and it's got antlers, and I'm like, oh, shoot. I'm not going to, Right. And then it comes up a little, and she's still looking at me, and I keep pointing with my left hand, and I'm looking over the top of my scope, following it, because it's traveling up through there pretty good. And as it gets closer, I realize, that's not a bad deer.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, it finally got even with us, perpendicular with us, and I'm still pointing, and Emma finally sees it. And when she did, you just heard her go, oh, and when she did, it stopped and turned and looked straight at us. And when it did, I realized, oh, wait a minute, no, click, and I went completely automatic.
Right.
Click, flipped the safety off, bam, shot it. It turned and went down the woods. Well, I realized in that split second that I just laid a .300 Winchester Magnum across my daughter's lap. I've got a muzzle brake on the end of the gun,
It
and
was quite loud.
pulled the trigger, and I'm like, I have probably just scarred her for life. And I didn't watch the deer run off. I sort of knew where he was going to end up. I knew it was a good shot. But I immediately stopped and looked at Emma thinking, oh my God, what have I just done to my child? And Emma, in typical Emma fashion, is sitting straight up going, you got him, Daddy, you got him, Daddy, you got him, Daddy. And then she stopped and looked at me and said, did you get him, Daddy? And I said, baby, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. When I shot, I just stopped and looked at you, and I didn't watch him run off. I was making sure you were okay. And I had always reinforced, she had heard me tell Mackenzie, and she'd heard it too, when you shoot a deer, watch it. See what it does. That tells you a lot about what the shot was. And I admitted to her right then that I didn't do that because I was more worried that I had just really, blown her eardrums out.
Yeah.
And she said, well, I watched it run off. And I said, well, what could you tell? She said, looked like it was hurt bad, Daddy. And I said,
that is definitely an Emma Browning statement right there.
It looks like it was hurt bad, Daddy.
6-year-old, 6-year-old Emma.
Well, it's still black and white at that time, and but Emma, she had heard all of you. I could tell in that moment she had heard all the stuff that I was trying to impart wisdom on them. She said, "But we need to sit here for a little while and give it time to lay down in case it was a bad shot." And I was like, "You're right, Emma."
That's coming from a no. We should probably wait.
Yeah,
good idea.
Yeah, that's so. I was like, "You're right, Emma. That's what we'll do. We're going to sit here and wait." Well, and we're excited. She was wide awake now, and I was like, "When did you see it?" We were telling the story right there in the stand, and she said, "I don't know, but how long do we need to wait?" And I said, "Well, Emma, I'm pretty sure that was a good shot, but let's give 15, 20 minutes, I said, I think that's a good shot, but let's whisper and be real quiet." Well, like I said, everything's black and white. We don't really have the colors starting to happen yet. But gradually the sun is coming up, and you're starting to see the oranges and the browns and the greens, and the forest floor is turning from gray to sort of brown. And I looked out about just right across the ditch at the bottom of the hill, and that there started appearing a white spot in the brown leaves. And I said, "Emma, hold on one second." And I pulled my gun up and I looked in the scope and I said, "Emma, we can get down. He's laying right down here at the bottom of the hill. I see him." And so she was excited. We got down, and this would be the first deer that Emma ever recovered in the woods. And she was just going to walk straight to it. And I said, no, let's walk over here where it was standing when we shot it. Let's blood trail it. And she's like, "Why? The deer's laying right down there, Daddy." And I said, "Well, it's good practice. Let's go do
You're
that."
like, come on, man.
And so we went over there, and we blood trailed it down and got down to it, took pictures of her with it, and then started dragging it up that hill. And we made about 3 trips up the hill to offload my clothes and put guns down, because it was not the worst drag in the world, but I was not prepared for it. Let's put it that way. So we had to. Finally, I got so winded. I said, "Come on, we're gonna go. We're gonna lay all our stuff right here. We're gonna go get the truck, pull it back up here, give Daddy some time to rest." And in that amount of time that we were going back and forth and walking down to the truck, she probably retold the story 3 or 4 times.
Right.
And so we got it, put it in the truck, and it is a nice deer. I'm very proud of that deer. But I got a picture of Emma with it where it was killed at. And then the rest of the day we were just, it was just all about Emma was a deer hunter, plain and simple. At that point. She was ready for that. She was going to do that from now on. And she pretty much still has. She's now a freshman at UGA, and called me last week to make sure I was going to be down there that first full weekend in November, because she was going to be off and wanted to come down and hunt. So it's one thing to get your 6-year-old daughter to go hunting with you, but when you get your 18-year-old freshman in college to call and want to go hunting with you, that makes you feel good.
Yeah.
So and we got, it was a little bit hard to tell Mackenzie, that weekend that you took off. Yeah, well, we killed a big 10-pointer. Sorry about that. But and Maddie was a baby. We've got a picture with Maddie touching the antlers. Little did we know what that would become one day. But that was probably, I think that was the memory that Emma remembers that she tries to recreate when any of the rest of us kill a deer. Was that first one? How exciting it was!
Wow, that's awesome to hear that story. And I'm sure, like you said, that's probably a memory that Emma goes back to of like, oh, what do you hunt? I bet like the imagery, bam, she's back in that tree stand as a 6-year-old,
Right.
being thrust awake. Then all of a sudden, ooh, there's a deer, But and again,
and Emma still doesn't hear very well, and I wonder sometimes if it's not because of that story.
maybe we know why now. Maybe. So back to me and you talked about this earlier in the day. And we'll probably try to have your daughters on here on the podcast at some point. Mm-hmm. But my wife is pregnant with our first daughter. Mm-hmm. And due date is in, 8, 9 days? 10 days? Something. We're close. Yeah. We're within a couple weeks now. But
I've got a pair of stirrups in the back just in case she goes into labor.
All right.
So, yeah, we're good.
Yeah, she's ready. But anyway, so, obviously it's our first kid. I've never had to start a kid hunting. So we'll probably have that at a later date as far as your tips and tricks, and that might be one that's not quite a story, but I'm sure it'll turn into a story.
Trust me, when we start talking about my kids in the hunting, there'll be infinite amount of stories available. So and I get much more excited about those than I do mine. But I will say I'm very, very proud of that deer. And in fact, I think my wife Alicia will tell you that I've said on more than one occasion, and I remember saying it to her that particular weekend, and she was like, "Oh yeah, that's a nice deer. Congratulations, baby." I said, "No. To this date, that's the best deer I've ever killed in my life."
Yeah. And
it was not the amount of inches of bone on his head. It was just that moment that Emma and I were able to spend together. But in that, I mean, that's really like going back to the opening. I've been able to have moments like that with all 3 of my daughters, with my wife, with friends. I mean, that's why we keep coming back.
Oh yeah.
The chance of me, killing, 150-inch deer this year in Georgia are slim to none. But man, I wouldn't miss the opportunity to try for the world.
Right.
That's what, and it's memories like that keep us coming back.
Oh yeah. And so what I did with Evan and then with Andre, which Andre's podcast comes out in 2 days, but is we kind of recapped at the very end for those people who are very like detail oriented, So got kind of a couple of questions I do want to ask you for the nerds out there like myself, but obviously I know the answers to a lot of these, but the listeners may not. Mm-hmm. So private land, it's to paint the picture for the people. We're in eastern Georgia, kind of middle eastern Georgia.
If you throw a rock across the Broad, you'll be in South Carolina.
Yeah, so it's on the South Carolina border. Wilkes County is where we hunt.
Or Savannah, I should say. Throw a rock across the Savannah.
Right.
And you'll be in South Carolina. About 45 minutes north of Augusta.
Yeah. So we're in Georgia. In Georgia, 125-inch deer that's a good deer. That's a bigger deer than a lot of people kill in the state for their lives. But private land is a lease. We don't own it. It's 1,500 acres. Mm-hmm. And how many acres of that would you say is field? I mean, there's.
I sit around and think about that a lot, and I really don't know. I'm guessing that it's deceptive. I'm thinking that there's maybe 250 to 300 acres of field.
Yeah.
But the majority, but that's on the backside.
Yeah.
Now, my perspective may be completely off.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I need to.
Bird could GIS it and tell us exactly.
Yeah, we need to ask him, because I've always thought about that. I'm like, is it hundreds of acres? Is it deceiving? Like, there are some massive fields.
Yeah, I bet you the front side there's not 6 acres.
Right. Oh yeah. The front side is mainly wooded with a few smaller fields and food plots, where the back side. Big fields, block of woods, hardwoods, mixes of pines. I mean, there's a good diversity.
There is. The only thing, if we could change anything about our property, is it's very narrow.
Yes.
And we have patterning where the deer like to travel is very easy at Pistol Creek. Patterning particular groups of deer is hard because we got 1,500 acres, but it's long and narrow.
Right.
There's parts of it that if they travel 300 yards, they've gone from property line to property line.
Right.
And that's an exaggeration, but 500 yards easily.
Yeah.
So, but it's a very unique piece of property. And even since before you were born, I started hunting that land in 1987.
Right.
No, 1988. and maybe not as much as it used to be, but everybody used to be shocked when we show up to the local deer cooler. And back then, the deer cooler was the gas station that would let you hang your deer in their beer cooler, and then you still had to process it yourself. But when we would show up, the does, the bucks, everything we killed were always 20 to 30 pounds heavier than everything else in the area, because of all the agriculture on it, and it's got good genetics. Nowadays, I don't see that there's a huge weight difference in the deer we shoot versus the surrounding people around us.
Right. But so I pulled up the map here on HuntStand, and from very top to very bottom, it's right about 5,000 yards long. Mm-hmm. So just to give you guys a shape, and then at the narrowest point, let's see here. At the narrowest point, we are. It's like about 900 yards. Let me check one other spot up here. Like up there in the swamp, around where you're killing, it's pretty narrow. Yeah, about 900 yards. So
okay.
Just under half a mile, right at half a mile, something like that is how narrow it is. So that's kind of the shape of the property we're talking about here. And one thing that's nice about the fields is if we had to pay to plant these fields, there's no way.
Right.
Like there's a lot. Like it would take everything we had to plant it. It'd be a lot of money. So there's a farmer that has farming rights. We plant our own food plots. We have probably 10 to 12 food plots.
Yeah, I know that there's 5 acres of food plots on the front side. I'd say that there's maybe 3 acres of food plot. Well, we took the strip back, so maybe 4 acres of food plots on the backside. The backside's 1,000 acres. The front side's 500.
Right.
But we're still, it's a work in progress. I'd like to see the backside get 10% of the acreage in food plots. But at the same time, we really haven't pressured ourselves because we've got so much agriculture on the backside.
There's already so much food.
They don't need our food.
Yeah, what I've always said is, usually they'll plant grain sorghum or corn in the summertime. Mm-hmm. And then when they harvest that, you've got September, October, and part of November where the big fields, there's not really a lot of food there. I mean, there's some sorghum that's left maybe from where they cut it. Mm-hmm. But if you have a good green field somewhere, you've got a couple of months that is prime. Mm-hmm. Once they're done with the acorns, you've got some prime hunting on food plots.
Or the year that we don't have good acorns. Right. And we've always had that's the one thing about that property. We've always for the middle of timber country in Georgia, we've always had a lot of oaks.
Yeah.
And now we have less oaks this year than what we had in the past because they cut some of the front side. But I'm pretty pleased with the amount of they came in and said we're taking the oaks too, and I was like, well, it doesn't do any good to argue because it ain't my call.
Right. We don't have any arguing power there. But and when he says front side and back side, so there's 2 sides of the road, and the front side is literally the front of the old house, and the back side is the back side of the old house.
Yeah, it's pretty complicated there, front. Back.
Yeah. Well, some people may not know. Yeah. But anywho.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of a lay of the land down there, and then where you were hunting.
I was about as far back on the backside as you could possibly get.
Right.
I would say where that stand is, I would give it 250 yards to maybe 300 yards from that stand to Pistol Creek.
Gotcha.
Which makes the back property boundary of our property.
Gotcha.
And it's a nice little oaky drain. Actually, it's not little. It's a very long, narrow, oaky drain that goes down through there and spills out into the swamp. And it's full of white oaks. It's got white oaks all through there. But I'm in the bottom corner of the property. So the way the stand faces, I'm looking at the I'm looking at the western property line. And then at the corner, and then it comes in, and then the northern property line, which is Pistol Creek, is what I said was about 300 yards to my right. So I'm in the corner of our property, and the edge of the other property line, which is that 300 acres on the other side, is very thick, full of cover.
Yeah, planted pines. I'm sure it was planted at some point.
And so they love to just. I mean, we shot it. Well, Maddie shot her deer in there with a bow this year, and it looks the same as it did. But it's just they can step out there, and I think they feed because of the time. I'll see them daylight, and I'll see them in the mornings and the evenings, and it's always with just enough time that they've either left the fields in the morning about the time the sun came up, and they've made it down to me, or they're on their way to the fields to get there about the time the sun goes down.
Right.
And it's a great feeding area that's also that they feel comfortable traveling in.
Gotcha. So good cutoff stand between bedding and food
and water.
Food. Yeah. There's water there. So I mean, you've got everything under the sun. So, well, nice. I like the detail there. I'm sure some people love that. Some people might not. But I like to dive into why was the deer killed?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's luck. Sometimes it's like, well, I'm gonna go sit over here and see what happens. No clue what's going on. No, not paying any attention to the wind. And sometimes it clicks and it happens. But
well, and that particular morning, I think I probably chose. I took Emma in there. Obviously, I can't remember if we had acorns that year.
Right.
I don't. That was probably she's 18 now. God, that was 2012. 2000. No, I don't guess she was 6 then. She's 18 now. She shot her first deer when she was 8. This was the year before, so she was 7.
So 11 years ago, so 09?
09, that sounds about... Yeah, because it was the same year that Mackenzie killed her first deer, and that was 09.
Okay.
So, yeah. I don't... we had the old-timey trail cams that, I don't think we had to go develop them at the drugstore anymore, but they were still pretty... we may have had to. I don't know why I was hunting in there, but I know this. I'm sure if I was hunting in there, it's because we had acorns.
Right.
There was good sign. There's always buck activity. There's always scrapes through there. You always see deer chasing there. But for me to take Emma in there, I had confidence in the area, so I assume it was rut activity and acorns is what had me in there.
All right. Well, I think that's a great story. And like I said, I figured that's kind of how it would go. We start talking, and you'd be like, got one. Mm-hmm. It'd come to your mind. So, and that's kind of how I want the podcast to flow. So, I think it went good. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you.
The Bucktails Podcast, brought to you in part by Trick Sporting Goods in Dahlonega, Georgia.